Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back. Check out my awesome miter saw station, or at least what it used to look like. Today we are building a miter saw station upgraded from this piece of junk flip top system. It's really not a piece of junk. It was just, there was a couple of things that I didn't like about it. So I tore it apart and I took those pieces, and that's why this piece looks all wonky junk, why it has multiple edges and it's not just a square. It's because I'm actually reusing the pieces from that build. That's why I don't use glue on a lot of my shop projects, because I can reuse the material in a future project. And this is prime example of one of those reasons why I'm very, very happy I didn't use glue, because if I had used glue, then I would be up a creek. Anyhow, I went ahead and I cut it all, and I realized I wasn't square, because if one piece isn't square and you keep trying to make it square on a non-square piece on a table saw, it doesn't work. So I decided to get my fancy Harbor Freight square and get it done. And now I have two parallel square sides, which allows me to be happy and excited, but they're not square. Something happened. How? What? Are you serious? I even put the square on it beforehand, and it looks kind of square. Well, let's try it again. What could go wrong? Well, sufficient to say mistakes were made. And that was a very dangerous thing. There's a lot of danger that happens in my shop. Don't be like me. Set your outfeed table appropriately. I actually built these on another guy on YouTube's idea, and here I'm just checking to see which one's more flat. Definitely make sure that you are slightly higher on your table saw than your outfeed table. Sometimes I forget about that, and so I end up messing it up, as you could see just then, and that could actually result in loss of digits, and I like all 10 of my digits, so I want to keep them. Either way, whenever using these homemade track saws, it's best to put some sandpaper or some kind of abrasive on the other side to help it. Be careful. Otherwise, you got to do this and do it very gingerly. Move the clamp from one side and boom. What? Are you? What an idiot. Oh my gosh. Forgot to plug it in. Try again. There we go. Whoa! Yeah, be careful with that. Make sure your piece is supported with that Festool piece of equipment right there. Finest quality you can get. Here, all I'm doing is trying to be cool and mark out where I'm actually going to drill, because I'm going to pre-drill, because this is MDF. And if you don't know, MDF has a tendency to not drill super good. So this is a project that I am going to end up gluing together, because I'm only using it as MDF and MDF. I don't have any hardwood on this. This was what I used as my platform, as you see in my workbench video. But I gotta be honest with y'all. Overall, I really enjoyed this experience, but the reason I posted, and the reason actually it took so long to post this video, is this is no longer usable for me. The way that I build this system, as you'll see later, and I'll expound upon what that means, I made a big mistake in building this. And so I'm gonna have to go back to square one and really evaluate how this is all going to go together. And that's what happens sometimes in woodworking. You see something, you think, wow, that is awesome. I really like that idea. I'm going to change it and make it better in this way. And then all of a sudden you end up ruining it. Maybe I'm the only one that does that, where you see a guy on YouTube and you think, wow, I could do that. And usually that's true. And even in this case, if I had built it as the person on YouTube built it, then I would be great. But I wouldn't be a good YouTuber if I just copied what everybody else did. So my goal here is to show how something's being built, but also give you guys some, hopefully, wisdom on what you shouldn't do when building something like this. But overall, I really enjoyed this, but MDF is really heavy, like super heavy. Maybe I should have gotten my better half to help me out. And this was before I was switched to my mustard bottle. I still was using from the Type Bond bottle. I liked it. It was okay. I think it's in one of the previous videos that I actually flipped that bottle over trying to be kind of funny. And I broke the top off. So there are some things that just don't work too great. But here, when you're using MDF, make sure to pre-drill and be very gentle. Not only that, if you don't have a drill and a driver, I highly encourage. Did not have a impact driver for the longest time. It's been awesome. I love using my impact. It makes things so much easier. At the very least, having two drills is nice, but having an impact specifically, being able to change out the bits, and it just drills amazingly. If you've never had an impact, I would encourage you next time you buy a drill to get the 2-pack, not the 2-pack, but the 2-pack, and make sure it is really, really good. Now here's a cross-cut sled. It's just a simple piece of plywood with a couple of other pieces of plywood, but just, oh my gosh, I almost chopped my phone in half. Oh, phones are expensive. Let's try that again. Oh, that was a little safer. All right, now that we got those pieces on, I know I didn't really film it very well, but you can see on the back, I just provided 2 pieces to help stabilize the box. If you've ever built cabinets, that's the best way to do it. And I do not recommend this. This was a really poor way of cutting this. What is this called? Oh, piano hinge. Really cool. Love piano hinges, but when your outfeed table isn't screwed in, it tends to move on you. And ultimately, I don't recommend using this type saw when cutting piano hinge. If you do, start very slowly and really just go very slowly the whole time. It was not a good idea. I should have just went and bought a hacksaw, but I didn't own one, and so I thought, oh, I'll get a metal blade and it'll be fine and everything will be good, right? I'm sure that you guys have never done that before. Anyhow, make sure you use the right tool for the job. Now here is number 1 issue with this whole thing. I used the piano hinge here to give me a great system for folding out the wings, right? Because this is going to be a miter saw station that's super compact that you can flip the wings out, make it look like an eagle, right? I live in America, right? I want everything to be just like an eagle, just caw, caw, caw. You know what I mean? That being said, the way that I did this was not good in any capacity. If you don't know, plywood is just layers of thin wood glued together and pressed together. It comes apart pretty easy. And so over time I was using this and I was flipping up those eagle wings, and ultimately it just ripped apart. It just wasn't good. And so number 1 issue with this whole system, using plywood to attach the wings. Even pine would be fine, but this is a much better instance of using plywood, where the MDF would probably split and it really wouldn't hold these casters very well. So I glued some plywood onto the bottom, some blocks, just so it could hold the casters, because of course I want everything mobile in this workshop. If you can have it mobile, I think you should. And this being a little box, I just thought it'd be great to have casters on it. So I flipped this stupid heavy caster box ready, and boom, look at that. We got a box that can spin around in circles and fall apart. So now I fully take apart the entire system. I have all these 2x4s, and as you can see, I did not cut them all exactly the same. So hopping on my crosscut sled because my miter saw was on the ground, and made sure they were all the exact same. In doing so, what I did is I laid it out and I put the mark there. That's the easiest way. Instead of measuring everything, making sure they're all precisely at this certain spot. Instead, no, cut one, and if that one's wrong, uniformity is more important than accuracy. Am I right? I'm going to say that again. Uniformity is better than accuracy. So all these guys being uniform, we got a pocket hold, boom, 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 boom. And then we cut out some more MDF. Getting these things ready and prepped for final assembly of the wings. That's what these are right here. And then I realized, you know what? I want them a little bit smaller. So I had to cut them again and again. But hey, measure once, cut thrice. Am I right? So this time I really wanted to make sure everything was square and pretty, and I had grown a lot from that first flip top table that I had done, because realistically, I didn't support the middle of it, so I had an 8-foot section of 2x4 that sagged on me, and it just ruined that whole bench in general. And so that was just dumb. Make sure you have correct spacing, especially when it comes to weight distribution on a long piece like that. If you're making an 8-foot table, you got to have something that is going to brace that midsection, or else it just will sag. And I mean, we don't like them sagging, right? Okay. So once I get all of this square and I get it all screwed in and pocket hole together, I love pocket holes. I will leave links to this pocket hole jig as well as the casters that I used. I used some Bremen clamps, so I don't necessarily have a link for that. I don't know if you have a Harbor Freight near you, but these are just parallel clamps from Harbor Freight. Yes, sometimes I go to Harbor Freight. Yes, roast me in the comments. But Harbor Freight is one of the best places to get cheap equipment, okay? That being said, this is where the second part of this build falls apart. Ultimately, I wanted it to be very, very sturdy and robust. And so I built this 2x4 frame, and then I had this MDF top on it. And I wanted it to be a certain height, and I wanted it to look really nice. So I did that. And then I realized, dang it, they're dragging on the ground. You never want it dragging on the ground, okay? So I had to go back, chop it all down, repiece it together. Again, this is why sometimes I don't use glue, because I make mistakes. I'm a dude, right? We all know females, they don't make mistakes, right? Just dudes. So me being a dude, I made a mistake. So I fixed it, and I made these smaller, so that way they would look real nice, they would fit real nice. You know, you want it to be real nice. You know what I'm saying? Real nice. I drilled it in, I got it all together, but ultimately doing all of this, not only that, having the shellac, I put 3 or 4 coats of shellac on this MDF, and that MDF just soaks up that shellac, and it gets super heavy. And that's ultimately what ruined this whole thing for me, is I made the wings too heavy. So if you're going to build something like this and you take this idea and you go forward with it, I highly recommend being aware of the weight of the wings. I love the idea of having the wings. I think it's super fun. I think it's super cool. It's very convenient. But ultimately, I didn't take into account the weight that's required for this. And so now what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to go back to the drawing board. And I'm going to still use that box, but I think I'm going to change how the wings flip up, if you know what I mean. If you have any ideas, I haven't fully exercised this. So if you have any ideas, please let me know in the comments below. Because this system of making a diagonal piece that will, you know, kind of fold in and then it folds out and then the wing is... And that probably didn't make any sense, but... Look at all that sawdust. Ain't that nice? Can you subscribe so I can have better dust collection, please? Thank you. I'm gonna get my Festool 4092. That's what I call that little puppy. And magically put my saw on and get her done. I do like these little bitty DeWalt clamps. I just think they're really nice. They're helpful to have. And they just make my Festool attach to my piece that I'm working on just so nicely. It's real nice. So I'm just here measuring everything, getting an idea of what I want, how I want it to look. I thought, make it nice. Put an angle. Triangles are the most strong piece of equipment that you can have, right? And so I added this little angle to hopefully reduce weight where I didn't need a reduction in weight, but also make it look a little more fancy, because who wants ugly furniture in their workshop? I mean, who would build just a random little piece of equipment that just looked bad? So now that my piece is broken, I added this little doohickey there, which I got it from some chick on YouTube. And basically I'm going to put a screw holder. Why do I keep blanking on these words? And lock your casters down when you're putting stuff in. You don't want that thing running off on you. It ain't your girlfriend in high school. So you get this thing all nice and purdied. And look how fancy these hinges are. I mean, you can't beat it. Fancy hinges that are going to fail in the future because you put it on the outside of the box instead of the inside, and so all of the pressure is going directly onto the hinge and none of it is going into the box like if you had a brain you would do. So anyway, here I'm putting in this fastener that will allow me to put a screw in it, and that will allow me to perfectly adjust to make everything level. Attach the wings to the plywood that may or may not break in the future. Tomato potato, right? I do like these piano hinges though. I highly recommend them. They were actually surprisingly easy to do. This is my first time using a piano hinge, and I do recommend do the two on the sides and then go down, or at least start with two, maybe one in the middle, one on the side, but get two of them in, and then everything else is just super easy. You just drill, screw, drill, screw, drill, 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 screw, 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 screw. And here's what I was talking about. I had the ability to put that bolt in and level it perfectly, but then I realized, man, it is too heavy. So I got my miter saw, my chop saw, my angle cutting saw, my dual bevel sliding compound model saw that I got for $120 because I am a deal seeker. Made sure that I got a perfect punch on it, and then I realized I can just drill it while it's still there. So that's what I did. Put some holes in the wood because that's 99% of what I do. And then I checked, how much do I need to raise this? I intentionally made the wings higher just in case I needed to level everything perfectly. And so I did the card trick. And I'm not a magician, but check this out. Put your level on there and then see how many cards does it take to get underneath there. For me, it was 3. If I put 4, it's too much. Now make sure you're using plastic cards. If you use that paper stuff, you ain't gonna get it to stay level like this forever. Now don't worry, I know it's pretty. It just, look at that. I mean, precision. I was so excited when this point happened, y'all. I can't tell you enough that I had a precise piece of machinery. But a couple of things as we kind of wrap up this video. Like I said, the hinges messed up. I had to put them inside. So if you're going to make this, don't put the hinges on the outside. Put them on the inside. Number 2, the bolt that I used, I made it too far away, and it caused the bolt to actually break. Apparently bolts are pretty fragile, and so just be aware of that. Don't use a super big bolt to angle and level all of this. But ultimately, this thing is super cool in and of itself. make the wings lighter, and don't let your wings fly away on you. I probably should have attached some kind of strap there. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something, and I hope that my stupidity brings you wisdom. Subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw here. I just bought a house, and so I have a lot of cool things that I hope to come here in the future. But I'll catch you in the next one.